Hi, everybody. Welcome. Mark Victor Hansen here. And I've got to tell you that when you have great, grand, and terrific friends that inspire at the depth and core of your soul, you want to hold them in high regard, high esteem for your whole life. And there's rare that I have somebody that I respect, admire, and can claim that I've been his friends for 4 decades. This guy, and maybe more, he'll tell us whatever it is, but his name is Dr. Lou Tartaglia. He's already written a first book, but now the second book that brings it even more to life with a camel named Jamil. You're going to like this guy. You're going to love him. You're going to respect him. And you're going to want to read him like you used to read Og Mandino's, the greatest salesman in the world, all the way to the greatest mystery in the world. Dr. Lou and I have been dear friends for a long time. Lou, you've written a book, which I'm going to talk about second, but The Return of the Cloth. What's the cloth? Is this the cloth? You and I know what the cloth is, but what's the cloth?
It's a bolt of linen that's brought back to.
Go ahead.
It's a bolt of linen that was brought back to Jerusalem at the time of the crucifixion. The first book had the camel becoming the final gift from the Magi to the Holy Family and helps them escape to Egypt. And then in the second book, I take you through where they went in Egypt in the very beginning. And then we bring the cloth that they failed to give to the family. We bring it back at the time of the crucifixion, and it becomes the shroud.
Ladies and gentlemen, while Lou is a practicing psychiatrist, and I've never needed him for psychiatric help, he is one of the few wisest people that has been my friend forever, and we've never had a crossword. We've gotten along. He's given me an honorary doctorate at the University of Toledo, so we've been that close as friends. But this guy is a man of great wisdom, and some of you don't know the shroud, so let me talk to it. Then he's going to do the specificity of it because he talked to the sisters, which he'll talk about. But I got to see the Shroud of Turin. Now, the Shroud of Turin is from Turin, Italy. In Turin, Italy, they held the shroud that Jesus was wrapped in. Now, Arabs wrap around like this. Jews wrap from the bottom of the feet over the top of the head, down over the toes and back again. This shroud has always been a mystery, and it's only a couple of decades ago, maybe. I was with Mary Kay of Mary Kay Cosmetics. She said, "Hey, Mark, you're scholarly and eclectically wise. Would you like to see the Shroud of Turin?" I went, "Absolutely, 100%. I thought we were flying that night in our private jet to Turin, Italy. But it was on review, as I told you privately, Lou, in Greenwich, Connecticut. Lou, tell us about the shroud. What is it before we go into the story? Just because it is the wrapper of wrappers, pal.
Yeah, it's a first-class relic of Jesus. It has his blood, his sweat on the shroud. In fact, it's AB positive blood. And it matches the same blood that's on the sudorium of Oviedo, which was the face cloth that was on Jesus. After he died, they took his sudorium, the sweat cloth that people wore at the time, and they wrapped his head in it so he wouldn't look at the face of death. And then this cloth was sent to Spain when the Muslims took over Jerusalem, and the shroud was already in Edessa, and then it traveled through Europe. So it's actually a relic, a first-class relic of Jesus. And so what they did is they wrapped him in this cloth, and of course they put flowers and things in it to perfume the body. And years later, in the 20th century, they were able to identify the pollen that's in the cloth, and the different types of pollen trace where the shroud actually went through the centuries. But there's ample evidence that proves that the shroud was in Jerusalem at the time of the crucifixion. So this is the actual burial cloth. And it eventually became property of the Savoy family. They were the royal family of Italy before Italy became a republic. And so the royal family lived in Torino, Italy, Turin, and that's where they kept the shroud. A few centuries ago, there was a fire in the church where it was kept, and the silver box that it was in started to melt and it burnt some of the shroud. When they did the carbon testing on the shroud, they took it from the section where the burn was and where the patches were. And so it gave the ages for the time when the fire occurred. But later they were able to verify that it's actually a 2,000-year-old fabric.
So let me talk to it a second. Having seen it live, not going to touch it. It was under, I guess it's called hermetic grasp, vacuum seal, so it wouldn't age anymore. But several things, ladies and gentlemen, because I saw it, and it, even though it's decades later, it had that profound impact into my beingness. First of all, Jesus was probably 6'4" based on his shroud.
No.
How tall was he?
He was 5'11" and weighed 165 pounds.
Oh, I thought they said 170, but the same thing. Yeah,
we're 175 pounds, 175, yeah, but 5'11", which is extremely tall for back then, when the average Roman citizen was probably 5'1".
Yeah, and when you go to the Roman, they always have the stair for you and I, because we're fairly tall. They got the doorways. You've got to bend, bow, and get in.
Right, because everybody was really short.
So the next thing I want to say, and then Dr. T can take us through it, but this guy had such profound light force energy that it literally burst into the shroud. And as I remember the numbers, there at that time, they showed us even a little video. There were 14 gung-ho Christians looking at the shroud and testing it and DNA testing it and every testing we could think of. I remember the videos are so clear in my mind right now. And 14 that were either, they're antagonistic, but they're either atheistic or agnostic. By the time it was over, and Lou, you have better information than I do, and it's obviously more current, but I think it was 28 days they did the testing. And by the end, all of them were true believers, because if you had hung Jesus on a cross and you put the nail here, it would go out like this. So go ahead.
Right, it would break the hand. But it was in the Descartes triangle, which is an area right here where the carpal tunnel is. And there are bands of fiber there that are strong enough to hold the body up. And when you look at the shroud, you see the nail mark on this part of the hand. And so that's the accurate place where they placed the nail.
And then you also talk about the legs, because the legs were crossed. And if you put it in, if this were a foot, it would also go out like this, ladies and gentlemen. There would be no hold when he was there. So go ahead, tell them where.
So the left foot was superimposed over the right, and it went right to the perfect spot to be able to nail both feet together into the piece of wood that was on the bottom of the cross where you nailed the feet in. And the marks on the shroud are exactly that way.
I mean, when you see this, by the way, I'm repeating in my own experience that everybody in that room, when I was with the shroud, that light force energy, remember, Lou is a hard scientist more than I am, but as a scientist, I got to say that all life is energy. In the beginning was the light, and this guy carried the light, right? It says in John, in the beginning was light, and this guy was light, permeated, penetrated, filled the inner spaces of that. We could still feel it. I can still feel even resurrecting that memory, which is indelibly implanted in here, in my heart, because it just hit your heart that this guy suffered for humanity. I mean, and Lou is a great Catholic Christian who just understands the spiritual understanding of that. So, Lou, why did you write this book, and when are we releasing it? What's the exact date of the Return of the Cloth, the Easter parable for all seasons?
It just came out. I don't even have my first copy yet.
Gosh, we ought to let the author have the first copy, don't you think?
It was just released.
101.
Yeah, Carol said they're shipping them, so they're on the way.
Yeah, Carol's our executive editor at Mark Victor Hansen Library. We are the proud publishers of this book, because Lou and I have talked at other times, and I don't know that it's appropriate, but we want everyone to be Godful rather than the Godless. Godful people understand what it means to know what the commandments are, what it means to understand why you want to raise and ascend your divinity. and cross out all the negativity in life. Go ahead, Lou,
Right.
take it away.
So originally what happened was I was in Rome with setting up a rehab for Mother Teresa. And we went to a library, an old library, and you had to have all these documents and you couldn't touch the books and they were in the special cases and stuff. And I was just accompanying Father Angelo, who was her priest. They let me sit down where there were a stack of rows and rows of old encyclopedias. So I was looking at an encyclopedia from the 1800s. I looked up some of the stories about Christmas, and it said that in the Eastern tradition, there were 12 magi, and in the Western tradition, it said there were 9. And it gave the names of these magi. So I decided I'd write a little story for my children about what it must have been like if there were 12 magi and they had 1 or 2 servants. You would have had 48 camels. It would have been a huge caravan. And of course, it made a big stir in Jerusalem. Well, one thing led to another. And at a certain point, I decided it'd be more fun for the kids if the camels talked. And then there was this one camel who was really rambunctious and irritable and impatient and not a very pristine character. And matter of fact, Les Brown said in the introduction, the camel reminded him of me when we were younger.
That's true. I read that. By the way, for those of you that don't know, Les Brown, we're not talking about Les Brown of the band of renown. We're talking about Les Brown, one of the 10 greatest public speakers on the planet. And he's dear friends with both of us. But he wrote a cathartic, heart-touching thing, because Lou is one of the great givers of all times. And Lou knows that you got to give a breath to take a breath, and that you got to give before you receive. And remember, he wanted to give this to his kids, and I've met all of his children, and Lou is an amazing man, but he is also this great researcher. I want to even go back just one step. When Lou wanted to see Mother Teresa, he called me. Am I allowed to tell that story?
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't know how it worked out, but I said, look, at this present time, Lou, I'm on the board of a lot of companies, but I'm on the board of directors of the world's biggest privately held airline, Evergreen Airlines International. Let me just call the owner of that, Del Smith. One guy owned all this, started as a helicopter company, ended up flying all the stuff for UPS. I painted all the planes brown, and the guys all wore brown uniforms. So, and as I remember it, and you got to correct the story, because now we're talking about 25 years ago or so, maybe more, but
40 years.
40 years. Holy crud.
30 years. 30 years.
30 years. Well, it's gone like that for both of us, I think. You would agree with that. Anyhow, Del Smith said, there's just one thing. And I said, what's that? One condition. I'll gladly take to Luigi, your buddy. But I said, what's the condition, Del? He said, if I get to go to meet Mother Teresa. So take it away. You arrived to meet Mother Teresa. What happened? Because this story is classic. It's one that
it's just so amazing. I on the way over to the mother house where Mother Teresa lived, I was with Del Smith's personal assistant,
Donna Nelson,
right. And she kept asking me to sing Amazing Grace. So we were singing Amazing Grace in the car. And I have a pretty decent voice, and we were having a lot of fun. I didn't know all the verses. She did. And so she was feeding me the words, and I was singing them. We get all the way there. We go upstairs to where you meet the nun that kind of screens people that want to speak with Mother Teresa.
The gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper. It was actually a gate, too. It was like a half door with a gate. And she said to me, you're the doctor from New York? And I said, yes. And she said, you didn't get our letter? And I said, no, I didn't get a letter. What did the letter say? And we told you that Mother Teresa would be out of the country this week and you shouldn't come. And I said, well, if God wanted me to meet Mother Teresa, I would meet her. And if he didn't want me to meet her, I'm okay with that. I accept his will. And she said to me, well, he must have wanted you to meet her because she's been sick and she never left the country. And tonight is the first night she's come out of her room and she's sitting behind you on the bench. And I turned around to look at her. And when I turned around, the nuns started singing in the chapel, Amazing Grace. It
I
was
get goosebumps. That's so
just an incredible moment. And Donna was just so blown away. It was incredible. And so she realized I was an addiction medicine specialist at the time. I'm now a sleep specialist. I've changed careers. And she had me help Father Angelo set up a rehab there. She had me meet before the town council or the city council of Calcutta to discuss addiction and recovery and what they needed to do to approach the epidemic they had in opiate use. And then later she asked me to help Father Angelo set up a rehab in Rome, and then we set one up in Mexico.
Wait, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to know that I told you in the beginning, this guy is my close friend. He's eclectically wise. He has had a magnificent life. Bob Hope saying, thanks for the memories. This guy's got tons of them and is a master storyteller, and a story articulating storyteller, and a even better writer. I just love and adore everything I read in this book. And I don't want to blow the story, but the story is it is the penultimate of stories. But the other thing about Lou is that he's multilingual. He trained in Italy, so he could help at levels with the brothers that Mother Teresa.
The brother was Italian, and he was having trouble understanding the concepts in English. And I said, would it be easier if I explained it to you in Italian? And I switched to Italian. And he almost broke down and cried because it was exactly what he needed. He had prayed with Mother and said, Mother, I need a doctor that knows about addiction. And it'd be nice if we could find an Italian one.
So what did she say? She kept saying, God will provide. God will provide. God will provide. Luigi shows up, and that's his affectionate name between us. But yeah. Dr. Lou shows up, and what did she say?
She said, see, Angelo, God provided.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why this book's going to provide you with not only hours of entertainment, but it's going to provide you with discussion points that you haven't got. It's going to provide you with discussion points that you're going to want to share with your priest, your minister, your rabbi, and I'll cover the gamut of those. And just say that it's because I have been through more religious artifacts, because if I hadn't become a top professional speaker and world's best-selling author, I would have been a theologue. I would have been a man of the cloth and an evangelist. I mean, Lou and I have talked about that at length, and that's why we're such great friends. But this book is going to hit you at the level that Chicken Soup did, as far as I'm concerned. It is going to hit you at a heart level. It's going to be heart-touching, soul-penetrating. Now, when Dr. Canfield and I wrote the Chicken Soup series, we said, and Lou knows this elementally well, we said we thought America's soul was in high hurt and high pain. We did not know the whole world was there. Lou, you and I have talked about this before. I don't know if you'll allude to it or not in generic terms, but is the world in trouble again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a spiritual battle going on. We know who wins, but the battle is raging right now. And remember, the evil one doesn't give up because he's vicious. If you've ever talked to an exorcist, you realize that the evil one is beyond anything you can imagine in terms of vindictiveness and rage and resentment. And the battle is going on, and he's getting ready to lose the final battle. So
talk about your first book and second book, because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be so bodacious as to say two things. Number one is I want you to buy them both. And Lou and I talked about that earlier before the show. And number two is I don't want you to buy one. I want you to buy no less than two and maybe four. One for you, one for your spouse, so they can read it at the same time. Because when you start telling this story and getting into the real live story of what happened, because this guy is a scholar in Jesus, you want to share it with your priest, minister, or rabbi, and everyone's got, if you're watching us, you got some spiritual friend that will want the same profound eclectic wisdom, and they want to drink it in, absorb it, and then share it. So talk to that, please, Lou.
Yes, I wanted to gradually, the first book, I realized what I wanted to do is I wanted to highlight how character is transformed, because the ultimate goal in life is for you to work on your character flaws and develop virtue, so that you become more Christ-like in your life. me give you a definition of character. Character is the blend of virtues and flaws that your soul wears as you present yourself to the world. And so everybody has flaws, everybody has virtues. You change one flaw and replace it with a virtue, you've changed your destiny, because character is destiny. So the first book was supposed to be kind of like a primer in character development, and that's what Jamil is going through. He's looking for the purpose in life, and the Magi pick him up and take him to Bethlehem. But at the same time, he's working with a mentor, an older camel, and she's trying to help him look at his flaws and see what he needs to change. In the second book, I wanted to take it even deeper. I wanted to get more into the character development and make it more closer to spiritual direction. The nuns at the Visitation Monastery read the book through Advent and Christmas time, and they kept telling me, I used to do spiritual direction. They kept telling me, you need to put more spiritual direction in the next one. You need to get more into the character development, because ultimately you want to work on your character. You want to let go of your flaws and pray for the grace to use the virtues that you're capable of using to become more Christ-like in your life. And that's what the book is really all about. It's a book on character transformation.
And the Apostle Paul said, be transformed by the self-renewing of your mind. So
Right.
that's book one. Book two hits Ephesians, where you are God's greatest masterpiece, and you are to go through the three incontestables: pain, suffering, and adversity. Lou kisses the iceberg on each one of those, takes you deep, and has you transform and go to a new level. What do you say about all that, Lou?
It was so much fun to write. I got more into the characters. I think I became a better writer. I work with a really good editor. That always helps. But it became much more fun because the characters by the second book were really alive for me completely. I'd lived with them for a number of years. And then, of course, doing stories about the Holy Family, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus traveling through Egypt. That was a whole area that I didn't know about. I didn't know that the Coptic Church, the church in Egypt, had a whole list of places that they believed that Mary and Joseph traveled to when they were in Egypt, and that they were there for about 3 years before they returned to Israel. And it was just a delight to do. It was so much fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, we don't want to steal any of Lou's thunder because we keep these at 28 minutes and 30 seconds. We want you to get The Return of the Cloth. That's the title of the book, an Easter parable for all seasons. And we've got a new offer, and that is you can buy it at markvictorhansenlibrary.com. So you can get it, and we will ship it out just as fast as Amazon. And we want, I think I can talk for my dear friend, Dr. T, more for you, spiritual growth, transformation, and development than maybe you want for yourself. But if you haven't invested in a book lately and you're just, I'm Mark's friend and I read Chicken Soup, so I'm watching it. No. I want you to become Lou's friend. But more than Lou's friend, I want you to meet his mind. Like when I met Og Mandino, I read all of his books and I met him and befriended him. Luigi met him and befriended him. And Og, who is one of the greatest writers of all time, said, hey, Lou, you got to do a second book before he transitioned out of life. And Lou, what is your closing admonition and recommendation to everyone out there when they get The Return of the Cloth?
When you start to work on changing your character, remember that Jesus will make sure that there's enough grace for the work to be done. So don't worry about it. It'll get done. Be patient with yourself and be transformed.
So buy the book today at markvictorhansenlibrary.com, at Amazon, wherever you're comfortable buying books. But don't wait. Get it, and you're going to feel great. And you're going to be thanking Dr. Lou Tartaglia in your prayers. And the only other hope that I want is that he goes to a third book, because this guy's got massively good thinking going. Lou, thanks for sharing with everybody again today.
Well, it's a privilege to be here.
That's a beautiful